One of my
Here we go
clients
again.
said the other day, "Ready, fire, set." I thought that was really funny.
Well, there's actually a meme. Well, that's a stranger I haven't seen for a while.
She says,
Wow.
"Oh, my Barry's here."
She hasn't been on the screen for months, it seems. She was just like napping in the corner. So, sorry, if you're
Yes,
listening to the podcast, that was the cat.
yes. Gigi was putting in an appearance because she likes Barry's
Yeah.
voice.
No, but sorry, the meme I remember seeing was about how a lot of people they do, you know, fire, aim, ready,
Yeah,
or they do ready, fire, aim. It's like
yeah.
the trick. The challenge people sometimes do is they don't look before they leap, so to speak. So yeah. Anyway, that's a different topic for today.
So today, I think people might think a lot about being vulnerable. That's what we're going to be
Hmm.
talking about, that it really is a scary, hard, challenging way to date and to approach a new partner and it even be in a relationship. But Barry and I are going to talk about how it really is the best way to approach new dating, easing into a relationship, even with friends.
Yes,
We're going to dive very deep into that today.
we will.
First, we'd like to welcome you to the newsstreamingnetwork.com, WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, radio, TV, and podcast, #1 internet singles talk network. And this is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Christine.
Barry and I are frequently quite vulnerable when we talk on our podcast to reveal things that we've experienced personally, things that our clients have experienced, because how can you really be a full living human being if you don't reveal some of your vulnerability? And we never say to reveal anything totally personal with somebody brand new, and you test people ahead of time. I didn't know how to do that when I was young. I just blurted everything out thinking that people would honor and be careful with that. And I learned the hard way that didn't work at all, because I was a good secret keeper, but turns out everybody else wasn't quite so good at it. My mother once told me, if you don't tell anybody a secret, you know everybody that knows it. And that turned out to be really wise advice.
Yeah, I definitely think there's some views that can go counter to each other. So as we explore in the conversation today, I hope we cover both sides. Because for me, growing up, um, I didn't keep my cards close to my chest, so to speak, a lot of times. And I wasn't, and actually, let me separate this out because vulnerability means more than one thing in this context. Because I firmly believe in pure vulnerability, but it doesn't mean being so honest you can't hide the truth, sort of thing. Because one of the things I think is very important oftentimes is to be less forthcoming of information so you can invite the other person to speak. But vulnerability, which is different from my languaging, vulnerability is the um, transparency that lets you be yourself without having to do anything special. A lot of people, as we both know, and we've done pretty ourselves too, put on an act when they first go on dates. You put on your best behavior, you dress up nice, especially if you're doing the real traditional date where you go on dinner and that sort of thing, because you want to look a certain way and present a certain way to be received well by the other person. That's not vulnerability. That's oftentimes a shell. And the challenge is, I mean, there's a video I saw, it's a comedy couple who does a bunch of silly videos, and it's about how, the first date, they're all perfect, proper, signed up, got the flowers, dressed in a suit, all that things. 6 months into the relationship, they're sitting on the couch in sweats eating pizza. And so it's that realization is that vulnerability, in a way, is fast forwarding past all the pretense to the true nature of who you are, not necessarily the pizza and sweats. However, it is about being seen as you really are versus pretending something you're not.
And that transparent word needs to be addressed as well, because you're being your real self. And if you're the kind of person that likes dressing up a lot, then be that person. And if you're the person that likes being casual more, then be that person. Or if you're the kind of person that likes dressing quirky or doing quirky things, then be that person. And
Yeah.
you don't have to be like full out that person all the time, and certainly not even full out that person on the first date, but be that person openly. Don't hide that person. That's
Right.
the vulnerability part, that you're showing your real self some. that you're
Mhm.
not hiding your real person behind the facade of something that you're not. I think that that's our temptation because it can feel scary. Maybe you've been criticized for being who you really are. I think that's a lot of what happens to people when they're growing up, that when you're being your real self, your family might not approve of it. You're too much of something or you're too little of something. And then when you grow up and somebody looks at you that way or mentions something about it, you want to go hide that again. And if as an adult, that really is who you are, don't you want to find a partner that relishes that, that thinks that's wonderful about you? So you show a little bit of it and then see, how do they react? Do they celebrate it? Are they put off by it? Because that's how you sort out whether or not you'd like to spend more time with them.
Yeah. In fact, I would say on that note, if you notice yourself becoming somewhat reactive because of something from your memory that shows up in the present moment, talk about it. Because a lot of people, unfortunately, tend to shut down when they sort of feel that fear come up or that doubt come up inside. A lot of people I know, they sort of contain it, control it, and hide it, and pretend to be either everything's perfect or they run away. Versus being vulnerable and saying, when you said that, that reminded me when I was a kid, and that really bugged me. I just want to check where you're coming from. Is that the same way? Is it different? Is it the same? Just so I know what we're talking about here, because I don't want to lay my history onto your current time because that's not appropriate.
I had that happen recently. Somebody mentioned something and I said, "What made you mention that?" And they said, "Because it was so unique and interesting." And I said, "Oh, because I had that kind of thing mentioned when I was a kid and it felt really critical and I wanted to check." And they said, "I couldn't have been less critical. I thought it was really unique and different." But my insides were like, "Oh, I think I'm going to get my feelings hurt." And so it was really good to check it out because it turned out it couldn't have been more opposite than what my little person inside who was a little concerned that that really was a mean thing to say. And it turned out it wasn't at all. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's really important, Barry, to talk about. Check it out. Because if you check it out and they go, "Yeah, I really was being mean," that's really good to know if they really are meaning to be mean.
Or if they're going to be like, "Oh, I didn't mean that way. Let me back it up. Let me rephrase it." Because the thing is, they also, let's be clear. Oftentimes, when on dates, the other person is being unconscious in what they're saying. They're just defaulting to a certain way of being. And the thing about being vulnerable is that you're not being unconscious. You're being very present, in fact. And so when you're with somebody who's not being vulnerable themselves, that doesn't work so well. So a suggestion, as we give ideas along the way, is
Mhm.
if you want to be more vulnerable in your communication, invite the other person into the same level of conversation so you can both be that transparent with each other, because there's such a level of trust that can happen when you're more sensitive to each other and you don't get so reactive to things. Become more respond, which is one of the key things I work with in my work. So there's a level of trust that can be built very quickly because you're being totally transparent with each other. Now, I should warn you now, if you risk that, you may have very big rewards. So just know that what you're walking into if you do that, because it's not the easiest path to walk for people who are more defensive than this.
Oh, yeah, that defensive part. Because if you touch on something vulnerable in somebody else that's a tender place that they haven't really worked on, because this has certainly happened to me, the defensive part just jumps right out first thing. And so if you're the person that's feeling a little less concerned about these, you can say, "Oh, wow, what made you react that way? What did you think I meant? What did you hear me say?" And if they can express, "Wow, that was hurtful," and "Wow, it sounded mean," and say, "Oh, wow, yep, I could see that, but can I tell you what I really meant?" And it can really make things stronger and better if you could sort it out at the moment, where people can walk away with hurt feelings that never get sorted out, and the resentment can build up, and then it can be like, "Well, I never want to spend time with them again." That if you do have a conversation about it to find out, "Oh, this word means this to me. Oh, it meant that to you. Oh, I didn't really mean it that way." The people who tease, they're harder on me. I don't do well with teasing, but I've learned that people that grew up with a lot of teasing, especially men that were raised around boys, the ones who had brothers, especially ones that didn't have sisters, I have really learned to sort them out and go, "Okay, stop taking this personally, Christine, and ask." Because they just tease this way. They tease in a way that's so foreign to me and my
Yeah.
sensitivity. So we've learned to sort it out, that I'll say I can take it up to this point and I can give it up to this point, but I do have a point. I have a place I have to stop, and they will. But up to that point, I go, okay, I can't get upset about every little thing you say, because then I can't even be friends with you. So it's been really good for both of us. I have a couple friends like this that like to tease that way, and I want to be friends with them. So we've worked at it. It's been an interesting work in progress for us both. You guys.
Well, speaking from the personal that side experience, more so the receiving versus the giving, just to be transparent. I used to do the giving more than I do now, thankfully. But I was thinking about this week. I have certain Zoom meetings I'm on regularly with different groups of people. And one group of people who are in my spiritual community, one of the people in that group loves to throw shade at me, to throw teasing at me. Now, I know it's in jest and I feel it on that level. But I watch myself adjust to be able to just shed it off like water off a duck's back, so to speak, because I realize, first of all, and this is one thing I've learned as a lesson along the way, which I help my clients understand, is it's not about me, it's about them. If they really want to criticize me or talk to me, they will do it directly. So when they threw those things out, that's for them to feel better, nothing to do with me. So why should I feel bad about it? And that's been, and just to be clear, this has been lots of years of work. It's not like I had an instant understanding, like this is all easy, piece of cake. No, it took some practice. But I did understand that. And so, and it's funny, because there's more than one place where that happens, where I'm not the butt of the joke, but where people, certain individuals, tend not to be directly appreciative of what I do. They're more flippant about it or more offhand. And I recognize that I may never get what I want from them the way they want to give it, but I'm not attached to the way they do it anyway. So I'm actually more comfortable. And it is a dance internally of being able to comfort myself and not be so needy for the attention from other people. Because the challenge is, when we get into relationships, oftentimes, and this is a thing we talked about in other shows, we can become needy of certain things from our partner that we don't always get that we want from them. And in this case, that sarcasm or that teasing was not what I wanted, for sure. But I learned how to work for myself and realize that what I can interpret it the way I want inside myself, and that's the freedom I have. So that part of the vulnerability is I get to be vulnerable in myself rather than going to them like, you shouldn't do that to me. It's like, no, that's just the way they're being. So from the teasing point of view, there are different ways of facing it.
It's really true. So first, we're thinking about how are you vulnerable with yourself?
Yeah.
Admitting this is who I am. This is my level of sensitivity. This is how much I can be the Teflon person and let it roll off my back. And this is how much I can't. And depending on how much I care about this person, how much I care about their opinion, how much I care about their feelings about me, how vulnerable I feel to them and what they say around me, and sorting that out first for yourself, and then opening your mouth and being vulnerable and saying it to them. About when I have these two friends and I say, this is how much I can give and take from you. I'm okay up to this point. And then I might have to say, I can't even do this much because I didn't get enough sleep last night, because I have this caveat about
honest,
hasn't had enough sleep. Yep. And they're really cool about it. And there's times when we laugh about it, that first starting with yourself, being vulnerable about, this is who I am and I accept this and I'm okay this way. Because sometimes we're not even that open and vulnerable with ourselves about, I like myself as I am and I'm okay enough this way. And is it something that's interfering with my life? Is it something I should go work on and talk to a therapist or a coach or figure out a way to get over this? Or nope, this is who I am and it's working in my life and I'm okay with it. And I'm okay with these people who can't be in my life because of that. And I'm okay with these people that I'm going to talk to about it, and we can see if we can sort it out. That first, that personal vulnerability is, as we always say, you have to start with yourself first, because the more vulnerable you can be having a conversation with yourself, I think the more brave you can be having a vulnerable conversation with another person and seeing, can they match you being vulnerable back? Because that's the optimum.
Well, that's the thing, is that we, just to reiterate what we said, basically, we oftentimes are oblivious to actually what we really need. And so to be vulnerable enough to see, like to look in the mirror and say to ourselves, what do I really want? What do I really need? What works for me? What doesn't work for me? We can start navigating that. And the thing we're going to watch for also, in being transparent and honest with ourselves, is realize that some things we may never get from somebody else. So can we give those things to ourselves first? So when we're somebody else, we're not as needy or hungry or desperate or attached to them saying a certain thing a certain way to us that we feel okay. Because reality is, we are the only ones who can really make ourselves feel okay anyway. Other people may want to or try to, but the reality is they can only get so far because they're outside of our physical self. In here, we're the ones in here, so we get to decide that. And so that vulnerability is oftentimes, as you said, it's like taking out the walls from ourselves so we can see ourselves clearly. And this is the key, see how amazing we really are. 'Cause a lot of people sometimes think that if they took down the walls, they'd never be able to trust who they are. It's like, no, when you take down the walls, you start realizing how amazing you really are. That's the good news.
Boy, that's a real vulnerable conversation to have with yourself, that sometimes
Yeah.
we don't feel good enough or enough of a whole bunch of things from the way we were raised. And that when we feel enough, smart enough, fit enough, happy enough, good enough to be in the world, good enough to be with somebody lovely, when we finally figure out that we're enough of all those things, then we can be much more vulnerable with saying, this is who I really am, to the other person. And do you like that? Do I like who you are? Tell me who you are, so that you can say yes or no. And that doesn't make anybody less than who they are, just not each other's people. And that's the height of it. That's really why it's the best approach, that when you get clear about who you are and you share little bits of yourself every time you're together with the other person, and you welcome them to share little parts of them, to just see, can you get closer? Can you share more? Is it safe? Are you connecting on all those important ways? And yes, as you said, you can't be all things to one person. You need to then find other places that you say, oh, I need to have this kind of a conversation, and I can't have that with them. So I'm going to go take a class where I can be in a whole classroom of people that are talking about world history or politics. Or I have a client that really likes the ballet and his wife doesn't. And I said, well, join a group that goes to the ballet. Whether you're going to be in a whole big group of people, because you can't go with just one other woman, that would be inappropriate. But you could go with them, and then you can spend the whole time talking about the ballet, and you get your fix, and then you can come home and tell your wife all about it. And in a short little thing, she'd be happy listening about that. But she
Right.
doesn't have to go to every single ballet with you, because it's not her thing, and you can stop being frustrated.
Amazing what you do with honesty,
Yeah. It's really amazing how that can work, right?
Right. And part of this whole conversation really is you get what you want when you start getting clear about what your values are. Because again, when you're vulnerable with yourself, you take down the facade of what you think you should want or what you should love and what you should be about. And you have to really say, okay, what really works for me is this, this, and this. And when you talk to somebody from that place, they get to be honestly deciding if they do want to give that to you. So when you meet somebody in a relationship, because so many relationships are built on the falsehood of appearance, they don't have the vulnerability. So this conversation, we can talk a lot more after the break. This conversation is really about how do you transform all your relationships, not just romantic, but family relationships, business relationships, social relationships. So yeah, this is getting good.
It's kind of exhausting to live behind a facade. So we'll talk more
Yes.
about that. We're going to have a short break for a commercial. And if this is speaking to you and you're thinking, oh, I would really like to talk more about this with someone, Barry and I would be so happy to invite you to have a conversation with us. So the way to get in touch with me is to go to my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com. Scroll to the middle of the page, click on What's Holding You Back from Love, the questionnaire. It'll give you access to my online calendar. You can schedule a complimentary conversation with me. You can also send me an email at Christine@theperfectcatch.com. And how would people contact you, Barry?
Well, similar to Christine, you can reach me through my website. My site is my name, so it's barryselby.com. And at the top of the screen is a button that says Let's Chat. And you click on the chat button, and it will take you to my calendar and also a questionnaire similarly. I mean, we both have the same way of operating. So you get on my calendar and you fill out a questionnaire that gives you a chance to answer some questions. So I get to know where you are and what you're looking for. Then we schedule a 20-minute Zoom call, gift from me to you, and navigate where you are and where you want to go. You can also send me an email at barryselby.com if you want to just reach me directly, and we'll tell you more about all the other things you can do with us at the end of the show.
So we're going to take a short commercial break for our wonderful station, the newstreamingnetwork.com, that promotes our wonderful show and our podcasts. And then we'll be back with more of the Let's Talk Dating show with Christine and Barry. We'll be right back.
See you in a moment.
Welcome back to the Let's Talk Dating Show with Christine and Barry. And today we're talking about being vulnerable is the best approach in all your relationships, your dating relationships, your friendships, and your family and your coworkers, your friends, your neighbors.
Anybody else?
Well, certainly, it's a sliding scale of how close you want to be and how much you want to share. But certainly being your true authentic self. I love telling people that my very first lunch with my late husband, I could not be my authentic self. There was just no way I could not be me. I was so driven to just being who I was and talking about what was important to me, the way he approached his questions and his enthusiasm getting to know me and the way he shared about him. I walked away thinking, I can't wait to have more conversations with him because it was so comfortable. There was such a comfort being with him. And then equally, I just went, and I'm so not physically attracted to him. There just was nothing not off-putting, but it was such a weird thing because we all think we have to have this big chemical connection and stuff. I made a decision to not date that way anymore, which was good because I wouldn't have gone out with him a second time if that's still been my driving force. But I couldn't wait to talk to him again and be with him again. And it carried through our whole marriage that I couldn't wait for him to come home and talk to him on the phone during the day because he was such an interesting man. I loved hearing what he had to say, and I just loved how he thought about me and the way he talked to me. And it was effortless to be vulnerable with him. And I found that he was more vulnerable with me than anybody he'd ever been with. He said that he'd shared things with me that he hadn't shared with his two ex-wives. And that was such an eye-opening experience for me to have that happen in my life that I didn't even know hadn't had it before.
That's one of the biggest secrets of vulnerability is how easy it is. We have this sense that vulnerability is dangerous or it's hard or it's risky or it's not safe, that sort of thing. The reality is when we make up all these different stories and personas and presentations and ideas, it becomes a whole encyclopedia we're going to keep track of. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
So in some ways, being vulnerable is easier. And let me speak to the safety thing for a moment, because some people feel like being vulnerable means you can be hurt and be wounded and everything else. Well, the reality is for most of us, it doesn't matter how vulnerable or invulnerable we are. If someone's going to hurt us, we're going to feel hurt. I'm just being emotionally, not physically. Physically, a different story, and it's not for this conversation. But if we are going to be vulnerable with somebody, it's not like we go, here's my open heart, stab me with your harsh words sort of thing. No. What vulnerable means is we don't have any withholds about truth. We don't carry falsehoods about what we're about. So we don't sell ourselves as something we're not. We talk about who we really are. And vulnerability is a gift to be, you were saying with your former husband or your deceased husband, how much of a gift that is, how much of a ease and pleasure it is to have a real, in no quotes inquired, a real conversation. And that's the joy of being vulnerable, is it does open up the door to much deeper, healthier, and more uplifting relationships, and also more uplifting conversations, just even with your family. Not easy for some people, I know, but having a vulnerable conversation with your family, not to hurt other people, but again, to be transparent so people can know more about who you really are. It's a gift that just changes lives.
It was eye-opening, heart-opening, mind-opening. And I still am, very cautious and share a little bit at a time. And what I tell people as I'm getting to know them, that whatever I tell you, it'll be 100% the truth. It'll just never be 100% of the story in the beginning. Because I share a little, and see what you think about that. And I want you to share a little and see what I think about the story. And then I'll share a little more and you share a little more, because I don't think anybody wants to hear the whole entire story in the beginning. And I certainly don't. But tell me enough that I can now make a decision. Do I want to hear more?
Yeah.
And I want you to make a decision. Do you want to hear more? Because it might be you hear enough and you're like, yeah, no, I don't want to hear anymore. I've heard enough that it's not my thing. You're not my person. There's too much in this. And I certainly walk that walk with my clients too, to reveal this. This is important to reveal, and then see what they do with that information, and let them reveal things and see what you feel about that information. And I think that's just smart. I think that that's a really intelligent way to have a conversation with people, because you don't want to make your heart available, your deep emotions available, unless you've each proven that it is safe, because it is a safety factor. But you don't lie and you don't omit something that might be really important to share a little bit of. So it really is a balance. But the more vulnerable you've been with yourself of, this is who I really am, and you've admitted who you really are, and then I'm going to share some of this with you and see. So, when I tell people, I bring a lot of stuff everywhere I go, it's just who I am. And is that a problem or not? And I'll show you a picture now of what it looks like when I travel. I now have my picture that I took last year. So it's helpful for the people who go, I take a backpack on a plane and put it up in the thing. And I said, cool, I'm fine with that. But are you fine that I check and bring? And they'll either say yes or no, because my husband could have cared less. And I've met a few people who care a lot in the negative way. So we couldn't travel together. And that's good to know from the beginning. If they think they want to travel with me, I'm not going to travel differently. It's just not who I am. And that would be silly to continue seeing each other if you want to say you want to travel together and think that people are going to change their minds, because they're not going to change their mind and I'm not going to change their mind. So that's a really thing that I accept about me, and that I need to tell people when that subject comes up.
That's clear and that's effective. Yeah. The thing also is yes, as you get to know somebody at the beginning, which you mentioned earlier as well, you're not going to tell them like everything about your life. It's not that sort of transparency or vulnerability, but what it is to say, even up front, it's like, know something. It's like, there's a lot more I want to tell you about that, but not for this time, because it is a sense of you want to introduce yourself to them in slow phases, because you don't tell somebody everything about you on the first date. So it's not like that sort of idea about being vulnerable. Being vulnerable is being honest with the way you are. There's a quote or a place I play with, a word I remember hearing about honesty. Honesty is about being one with what is, which can change from moment to moment. So honesty is not like a one shot and done, one and done. It is malleable depending on what's going on for you. So when you're being honest in your communication, which to me is being vulnerable as well, you're telling the truth as you know it in that time, but it may change in a few minutes. And just to be transparent, for women especially, this is very changeable. I learned this in
honest to admit that.
Oh, absolutely. In the teachings in the teachers I studied with and in the trainings I took, it was made very clear to me how we men do not respond and react the same way women do. And so the understanding is that when a woman tells me her truth, it's true in that moment, and it might change in the next second, because that's the way women are balanced. Their energetics and the way they're wired and the way they feel, which is alien to most of us men. So understanding how to be that way. And so on the other side of the things, for us, our truth oftentimes is a place we stand on. It's really like clear about who we are and what we're about. But being vulnerable is allowing our heart to show, because for most men, we protect our heart like it's the last thing on the planet. But being vulnerable means we show how much we care. We show how much we feel for things. We let our emotions express. And so one of the gifts we can give women, especially in real relationship, and I know women are going to be cheering hearing this, is to show our vulnerability through our emotions, let them know how we feel. Now, the challenge is we don't necessarily understand how we feel very well because we're not familiar with those things. So one of the parts of self-facilitation for men is to understand what our feelings mean to ourselves. You can't just say, I'm fine, which is easy to do, but it's not reality, because it's going to be something different inside. And so having the willingness to face our own, I won't say inner demons, but sometimes our own emotions can feel like demons because they're out of control and we don't know what to do with them. But when we get to understand why that is, then when we meet somebody we want to be safe with and trust and have vulnerability with, we're not afraid of sharing that with them.
Oh boy, and isn't that an interesting dance? Because we women say out loud, we want you to be vulnerable, we want you to share their feelings. And sometimes when you do, we get afraid because we think, oh, does that mean you're not going to be strong and protect me?
Mm.
Because it can make us wonder, if we don't know enough, are you now weak and you're not going to be able to protect us? It's a whole lizard brain thing that happens, and that you don't want to ever be thought that way by us, and you don't ever want to feel that way about yourself.
Mm.
So you fight the instinct to be vulnerable and say vulnerable things. And often you were taught as a boy not to buck up and not show your feelings and, don't cry. So it's such a challenging dance for adults to have this place where you can both be vulnerable, where a
Yeah.
man could find that we are safe for you to show vulnerability, and that we now know how to react in a way that we can make it safe, and that we know that you're not collapsing, we're not collapsing, you're still this big, strong, hunky guy, that you're just showing a soft emotion. And boy, does that take a lot of work to get there. Oh
Oh, yeah.
my goodness gracious. It doesn't just happen overnight. Both people have to do so much work around that. Because I've heard that, with the couples that I've coached, that, wow, I really wanted him to do this, and now that he's doing it, I'm not sure how I feel about it.
Right. Because it's about feeling safe with each other. So trusting each other. And that's the thing, that in really deep connected relationship, to have that vulnerability with each other where you can trust each other implicitly, that no matter what comes up, you'll handle it together. That's the high bar that I personally believe is possible for any relationship. It does require a sense of, I'll say the intrepid explorer sort of thing, being willing to step into it one step at a time, and you're like, I'll step in, you step in, I step in, and we step further and further into that conversation. So we discover that we actually have such a safety with each other. Because you say, you're going to be safe with me no matter what. It's like, well, do you know that or not? You've got to almost take baby steps on both sides to know that you actually are experiencing feeling safe, because that's really the proof of the pudding. And then it becomes something much more rich, because you now have a new resource place to be in where you can totally go there with each other when you choose to. Because the other thing also is, like you're saying about men don't want to feel weak or looked as being weak. It isn't something we switch into instantaneously. Sometimes you've got to set up space for that in the relationship that you're in, to say, okay, let's sit down and have a conversation when we're both feeling comfortable with it, so we can go deeper and deeper into this vulnerability. At the moment, I've got to stay strong because of what's happening in the world, or what's going on. So we keep that going, because yes, it is also for us men, generally speaking, when we're being that vulnerable, we tend to be able to switch back into tough masculine man pretty quickly if we need to. So when the need pulls us, we don't have to, but we can move that way pretty quickly. One of the gifts we have that way. And because our default is to be that, it's easy to get back to it when we need to. So it's like we can show our naked belly, so to speak, and then we can close it back up again when we need to, pretty easily. So that's one of the gifts that we have. And one the way we serve our women is by being the protector and being the strong man, even though she can see our weakness or our vulnerability.
It's a very, very interesting dance to watch people that can be very successful at it, that you can still feel masculine and we won't emasculate you while you're doing it. Oh my. Yeah, it's really wild. Yeah. I was coaching a woman today, and she was saying, but he wants to explain to me all the reasons why he has this thought that's so wrong. I said, you know how many times he's listened to you when you've had a thought that he thought was so wrong, and we talked about how he needs to just be quiet and let you keep venting? The tables have kind of turned. She goes, oh, you're so right. He says,
I
it's
love it.
really hard. I go, see how hard this is for him to do? And he does it way more than you're having to do it. She goes, you're so right. It was such a funny conversation. He said, he doesn't have to do this as much as you, right? She goes, that's true. He has to do
Yeah.
this a lot for me.
Yes,
But
we have to
holding
work
that space,
so
it's yes, but holding that space when somebody's really being so vulnerable, it's hard, because we're like, is I don't know what to do. You're being this other role.
Mhm.
You're usually the big old He-Man, consoling me. And wow, it's really a very honorable thing if a man allows us to do that for them. But we really have to be very careful that we don't ever, ever use it against you. Ever, ever,
Right.
ever. Never
Don't
betray and tell anybody else, as much as we want to share it with our best friend and say, see how important I am that he shared this really vulnerable thing with me. No, never.
Yeah.
Button your lip, ladies.
Yeah. Keep that sacred, keep it safe. Absolutely. That's part of being vulnerable too. And so I guess I want to say one thing about vulnerability in this moment is that being vulnerable when you're out in the world is one thing, but being vulnerable in a relationship, it's a form of agreement. And it's important for both partners who are choosing to be vulnerable with each other to say, look, this is what I want to do with, I want to be with you this way and be this vulnerable with you. Or you want to do that with me. And if you have that agreement, then it creates a sacred chamber or sacred crucible for that to happen in. So it isn't something you just go, well, that's what it's going to be. Although some people can get away with that, being totally transparent without any fear in the world. But most of us have a certain degree of opening up that door slowly but surely. And so having that agreement in place is so key for us, because then it creates something sacred, but also it means you got to keep agreements and keep it trustworthy. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
It has to be a vault,
Yes,
a private vault.
absolutely.
Oh my. So, gosh, if you've been thinking about being vulnerable or wishing somebody else would be more vulnerable with you and it's not working smoothly, Barry and I would be so happy to talk to you about that, because it is the best approach to being close with anybody, to having a better relationship with yourself or anybody else in your life, is learning how to be vulnerable. So, if you'd like to have a conversation with me, I would be so happy to do that. Go to my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com. Scroll to the middle of the page and click on the What's Holding You Back from Love questionnaire. There's 10 brief questions about where you are now that's not working and where you'd like to be that you think would work better. And then it'll give you access to my online calendar. You can schedule a complimentary conversation with me and we can puzzle it out together. And I promise you will leave with some helpful information. Oh, Miss Gigi is back. She's making 2 appearances today.
Wow.
I
Amazing.
know. On that website, there's a few other things you can do. You can join my mailing list. You'll get this podcast in your mailbox every week, so you can watch Barry and I give you some interesting tips about dating and relationships. You'll also find out some fun things that I'm going to be doing this year. You can also go to the top of my website and click on my ebook, which is free. Give you lots of interesting dating advice. You can also go to the bottom of my homepage and look at all my social media and click on those and join all my Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and Pinterest and Twitter and YouTube. And if you click on YouTube, you can watch all our episodes that Barry and I've done. There's almost 270 of them. And you could also send me a personal private email at Christine@theperfectcatch.com. And I also wanted to mention, because I haven't in a while, the way I came up with the name of my company, The Perfect Catch, is that like this: learn how to be one, get in touch with yourself, and then you'll attract one. And how do people get a hold of you, Barry?
Well, similar to Christine, I have lots of ways you can reach me. Again, my website is my name, which is barryselby.com. Sorry, my website is my name plus the .com. I don't say, hi, my name is barryselby.com. No.
Funny.
My website is barryselby.com. And on that site, on the homepage, as I mentioned before, at the top of the screen is a button you click on, which is Let's Chat, which gets you on my calendar. You fill out a form, we get to have a conversation and see where you want to go. There's also 2 other things on the homepage you can go to. At the bottom of the homepage on my website is an opt-in to my email list. Similar to Christine, I send out emails every week with replays of the show, plus everything else I'm working on. If you want to be on my email list so you know what's going on, get the first stop press news, then definitely join my email list there. You can also drop me an email directly at barry@barryselby.com. In the middle of the screen is the first of my 2 assessments, the quizzes I created. One of them on the homepage is your relationship readiness assessment, because I believe you've got to be ready for a relationship the right way rather than just simply jumping out and dating. My way of saying it is, I hope you become a better partner to attract a better partner. So similar to Christine, but different languaging. So in the middle of the screen, you click on the button there that takes you to the first assessment, which is my quiz. They're basically ask you questions to see if you know what you're looking for and where you're lined up for. I mean, go directly to it by going to barryselby.com/quiz. You'll get an email from me with a short, I won't say it's an essay, but a short description of where you are on the path and how well you're going forward, and some ideas of what you can do next and if you want to work with me. The second assessment, which is not actually a button you can click on, but you go directly to it, which is barryselby.com/self-quiz. By the title, you might have got a clue that it's about self-assessment. It's a self-relationship assessment. And this one's much more self-interrogation, so to speak. Again, it's for you to look at yourself in the mirror, so to speak. There's 7 areas you go through, looking at each one of the different ones, where you are and what's working, what's not working, where you can do better. This one, because there's a deeper quiz, you get deeper response from me, which means you get a PDF with a lot of information that help you navigate the journey of where you are in relationship with yourself, some homework assignments and some practices, and also some invitations to work with me as well. The other thing on my website I want to mention is my book, which has been out for a long time now, but it's recently been attracting new viewers and readers, put it that way. So if you go to the book page through the homepage of my site, or you can go to barryselby.com/book. If you want to check out my book before you buy it, there's actually an audio track that I got created by AI, which is about 12, 13-minute conversation with these 2 very smart voices that discuss my book in great detail. So you get a sense of my book before you even buy it. And then when you love what they say, because they say really good stuff, you can click on the link at the bottom to buy my book. It's on Amazon. It's also on Kindle and other places too. Social media-wise, you can find me on all the platforms as well. I'm under Barry Selby certainly on YouTube, where this show goes up with all the other ones, plus another 1,500 videos I've got on my YouTube channel. So there's a ton of stuff you can follow me on. Check out my YouTube channel, subscribe. There's so much stuff I talk about, I couldn't even cover it here. So go check that out. But I'm also under my name, Barry Selby, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Pinterest, and on Blue Sky. And if you want to follow me on Instagram and Threads, it's The Real Barry Selby. And I think that's everything.
Could send you an email.
Oh, I mentioned that. They can send me an email, barryselby.com.
Perfect.
Okay.
And you can watch our shows here live on Thursdays at 1 o'clock Pacific and 4 o'clock Eastern and all the times in between. And you can watch them on replay on Roku and YouTube. You can listen to us on podcasts, right, Barry?
Yes, indeed. The show is now being put up on all the major platforms. So if you listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you listen to podcasts, just look for Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. Listen to all our shows. You can binge listen if you want to, if you're on a long drive going across the country. Listen to our shows all the time. You can get all good tips, so you'll be ready for a relationship wherever you're going. But just listen to one episode at a time, or listen to a bunch at a time. You can search by title and then say, as Christine said, there's almost 270 of those out there now. So plenty of content to keep you entertained, uplifted, and inspired for a relationship.
And whether you watch us or listen to us, we'd love for you to leave us a like and a review, and please share it with any of your friends or family that are also having questions and challenges with their dating and relationships. And Absolutely. We'll be back next week with another interesting title and subject and more information to help you in your dating and relationships with Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. Bye till next week.
See you next week.